Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. When we think about the costs of war, we picture ruined cities and human tragedy. But what about the silent victim? The one that can't cry out, but suffers for decades, even centuries, after the last shot is fired? I am talking about the environment. Today, we're diving into the toxic legacy of conflict and the incredible science being used to heal our war-torn planet. War poisons everything it touches. Explosive weapons, especially in cities, create massive clouds of toxic dust and leave behind rubble laced with hazardous materials. When industrial sites or water treatment plants are hit, it's like unleashing a chemical cocktail into the wild. Think about the GA power plant in Lebanon, bombed in 2006. It spewed thousands of tons of oil into the Mediterranean. Or go back further, to the Vietnam War and Agent Orange, a chemical that deforested vast landscapes and is still causing health problems today. The damage is multifaceted. You have unexploded bombs and munitions, leaking heavy metals, and depleted uranium into soil and water. You have the destruction of infrastructure. Then there's the massive carbon footprint. Military activities are estimated to contribute a staggering 5.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, an amount often conveniently overlooked in climate agreements. And of course, there's the deliberate destruction of habitats, like draining wetlands or clearing forests, to gain a tactical advantage. The battlefield is not just a place of human conflict. It becomes a long-term environmental disaster zone. So how do you even begin to clean up such a mess? First, you need a map of the damage. And that's where the science of assessment comes in. This isn't easy. You're often working in unstable regions. But organizations like the United Nations Environment Program have been pioneering this work for decades. One of the most powerful tools is remote sensing. Using satellites, scientists can get a near real-time view of a conflict zone. They can layer this data with older maps and humanitarian info to pinpoint exactly where and how the environment has been damaged. But satellite images don't tell the whole story. You still need boots on the ground. Teams go in to take samples of soil, water, and air. These samples are analyzed in labs to identify the specific contaminants and their concentration levels. This hard data is crucial. It stops the environmental damage from becoming a political football and creates a factual basis for the cleanup. And importantly, this process involves talking to local communities. They know the land, and they're the ones most affected. Their input is vital for any long-term success. Once you know what you're dealing with, the real cleanup begins. And let's start with the most immediate danger: unexploded ordnance, or UXO, and landmines. These are the deadly leftovers that kill and maim civilians for years. Traditionally, finding them involved a metal detector, which meant digging up every single bottle cap and piece of shrapnel. A huge waste of time and incredibly risky. But technology is changing the game. New detectors use magnetic resonance, similar to an MRI, to detect the specific molecular fingerprint of the explosive itself. No more false alarms. This makes the process much faster and safer. To reduce human risk even further, we're bringing in the robots. Remote-controlled vehicles with flails and tillers can clear large areas. Drones with special cameras can survey potential minefields from the air. A Japanese startup even developed a robot that uses puffs of compressed air to gently excavate the soil around a mine, allowing for its safe manual removal. In cities, armored excavators sift through rubble to find hazardous items, making urban clearance faster and safer for the demining teams. But what about the invisible poisons? The chemical contamination? You can't just bulldoze that away. This is where we turn to nature's own cleanup crew. The field is called bioremediation, and it's fascinating. One of the star players is fungi. Yes, mushrooms. This is called mycoremediation. Fungi have an incredible ability to break down a huge range of pollutants, from explosives and heavy metals to even Agent Orange. Their vast underground networks act like a natural filtration system. Then there's phytoremediation, which uses plants to suck contaminants out of the soil and water. It's a cost-effective and green solution. Sometimes, all you need to do is give existing microbes a boost. In Iraq, environmental agencies helped clean up massive oil spills by adding nutrients and wood chips to the contaminated soil. This supercharged the naturally occurring oil-eating microbes, speeding up the cleanup process. There's even a technique called anaerobic composting, which uses a mix of manure and organic material in an oxygen-free environment to break down perchlorate, a chemical found in some explosives. This environmental damage isn't an abstract problem. It has severe consequences for human health. Veterans have returned home with a host of illnesses linked to the open-air burn pits used to dispose of waste on military bases. These pits released a toxic soup of chemicals, leading to respiratory diseases, cancers, and autoimmune disorders. Water sources on and near bases have been contaminated with forever chemicals, like PFAS from firefighting foam, which are linked to cancer and immune system problems. We've already mentioned Agent Orange and its devastating multi-generational impact in Vietnam. And the use of depleted uranium in weapons continues to raise serious concerns about long-term health risks for both soldiers and civilians. So where do we go from here? There's a growing movement to strengthen international law to protect the environment during conflict. The UN is developing legal principles, and some are pushing to make ecocide, the widespread destruction of the environment, a crime punishable by the International Criminal Court. The task of healing our planet's war wounds is monumental. It requires a long-term commitment, international cooperation, and the active involvement of local communities. But by investing in the science, by developing these incredible cleanup technologies, and by demanding greater accountability, we can begin to mend the damage. We can pave the way for recovery and work towards a future where peace is truly sustainable, not just for people, but for the planet we all share. Thanks for listening to Fun Facts Online.